If you've ever been curious about the alternatives to traditional healthcare, or you're feeling stuck in the cycle of prescription drugs and quick fixes, this episode is for you. We're going to give you the tools to take back your power, advocate for yourself, and maybe, just maybe, find a better, healthier way to live. You don't want to miss this conversation. It's going to be packed with wisdom, breakthroughs, and practical tips you can use right away. So stay tuned in because by the end of this episode, you'll have a whole new perspective on how you can transform your health and start living your best life. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Transform with Angel show. I am your host, Angel Carlton Anderson. And today we are diving into a topic that's literally been 100 years in the making, the transformation of healthcare. And here's the best part. It's all about you. It's all about you becoming the best version of yourself and finally taking control of your own health. Now, picture this. Over a century ago, healthcare looked completely different. We were all about nature, healing with plants, herbs, and holistic remedies. People focused on preventing illness, not just treating it. And then along came the Rockefellers. Yep, the same family behind the oil and gas industry. They decided it was time to make healthcare a big business. They shifted us away from natural healing and straight into pharmaceuticals. Drugs became the solution to everything. They literally mimicked what nature could do and made a synthetic version of it. Why? They saw the monetary potential of the healthcare industry. They knew it was a need that humans required throughout their existence and found a way to capitalize on that need. So here we are today, after decades of take a pill for this, take a pill for that. And guess what? People are waking up. We're more empowered now than ever to ask questions, to advocate for ourselves, and explore alternatives. The good news is that the pendulum is swinging back to natural health. And there are amazing options out there that work with your body, not against it. In today's episode, we're going to expose the truth behind this shift. We're going to break down why it's happening, and most importantly, show you how to take control of your health. But this isn't just about history and statistics. It's about you. You deserve to be the healthiest, happiest version of yourself, and that starts with having the right information and knowing your options. So to help us out today, I've got two powerhouse guests joining the conversation. I want to introduce my special guest today. Dr. Theresa Spano is my first guest, a naturopathic doctor and licensed nutritionist. She's been practicing for over a decade, focusing on holistic health and nutrition. Dr. Spano's journey is deeply personal after overcoming Crohn's disease and other chronic conditions. She's made it her mission to help others navigate their health challenges. She creates personalized, holistic plans for her patients and focuses on the mind-body connection. Dr. Spano, I can personally attest to your amazing work as you have helped me detox and recover my body and my brain, thankfully, from mold and environmental toxicity. I'm excited for you to share your wealth of knowledge with us. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
And joining us is Linda Csaszar, who has a passion for holistic wellness that began in her teenage years. After battling acne and not finding relief with traditional treatments, Linda dove into nutrition and holistic health, making it a lifelong journey. Today, she's a fitness instructor, yoga teacher, and a mindset coach. Linda believes that by cultivating a positive mindset, we can unlock our potential and transform our lives. Linda, I can't wait to dive into your journey and hear more about the natural modalities you've discovered and tap into your expertise. So thank you for being
Yes, Thank you, Angel, for inviting me to this powerhouse. I love this topic. It just excites me, and I love seeing the shift. And I just want to thank you for this book. You've really helped me and my team. This is something. This is a must read, guys. It's really talking about mindset, which I really believe we are spiritual beings having this physical experience. So mindset is a big part of it, and I think we'll touch on some of that today too.
Perfect. I appreciate that little plug. I'm dedicated to destiny. Let's jump right in. The first segment, I want to chat a little bit about the shift in healthcare and the history behind it. Maybe talk a little bit more in detail about the Rockefellers and how we got to where we are. Let's start from the beginning. The healthcare system we have today is completely different from what it once was in the early 1900s. Rockefeller and others that have shifted healthcare from natural, as I mentioned, and holistic approaches to this pharmaceutical model that we are accustomed today. So, Linda, Dr. Spano, let's talk about this transformation. Linda, I
Uh,
know you're the one that kind of brought this topic to my attention, and I found it really fascinating. And how did this healthcare industry shift from being holistic to primarily pharmaceutical? And what was the role of the Rockefellers in that transition based on your
well,
research?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So the story is that the Rockefellers obviously were very successful. They were in the oil and gas industry, as you have mentioned earlier. They wanted to get into the pharmaceutical market, but it wasn't being received well because there were so many holistic approaches that people were taking and treating the body, and like you said, more on prevention. So they could not take those herbs and patent anything because you cannot patent something that God created. So they shifted it. They made it a synthetic so that it was something that they could patent. And that was where it started, the pharmaceuticals, a pill to address when really it roots from the plant source. They went to Harvard University and they thought, well, we need to get the medical education on board with what we're doing, this shift that we're making. The Rockefellers offered $1 million endowment to help improve the medical facility, the training of the doctors that were coming to through Harvard. Now, they knew that this was not a good move, but they also $1 million at that time, the turn of the century, was a lot of money. It's a lot of money today. They accepted it. The Rockefeller said, there's no strings attached here. We just really we really care. This is a philanthropy offering that we're providing. We just want betterment of healthcare. And then they said, okay, well, we just want one person on the board. Just, you can understand, just to oversee some of the decisions and just kind of be a listening because we want to ensure that we're know what's going on. Well, that started to infiltrate into three, and then it was more and more people on the board. And their shift was let's change the education, let's reduce the amount of nutrition that we're teaching the doctors and focus more on diagnosing and then providing the pills, the drugs, this pharmaceutical as the solution. And at the same time that this was happening, they were also downplaying all these other modalities, such as acupuncture, which had been around for centuries, plant medicine, oils, they're in the Bible, essential oils, and how they can enhance the body and help the body, fight off funguses and boost your immune system and all these things. So they were saying that was like quackery, chiropractic, and all those things did not aid, that they had the solution. And so slowly it started to shift. And then, fast forward to today, or even decades ago, they isolated the body. The body works holistically in synergy. And they divided and dissected the body. You have somebody that knows about the heart, knows nothing about anything else of the body. But that's not how the body works. The body works intricately woven where we're at today. And people, they've really created customers because of all the side effects. So now when you take these prescription drugs, the side effects that we see are just horrific, sometimes way worse than what they were trying to treat. So then they give another drug for that. And you have all these doctors that you're seeing. They don't know what the other doctor's prescribing. It just doesn't make sense. And it's not working. It's a broken system. We are the sickest developed country. I think It was 47. We were ranked 47. Now it's even higher than that as a developing country to be this sick, to have this many diseases. It just doesn't make sense.
Wow, great information there. And if anybody listening or watching wants to read about this, you just Google the Flexner Report from 1910, which is what he funded, John Rockefeller, which led to the closing of many, if not all, at that time, the naturopathic medical schools and promoted pharmaceutical drugs as the foundation of healthcare. So you can read about it yourself. Basically, everything that we're talking about is true and how it really shifted. Dr. Spano, from your experience, you've been trained in holistic wellness. How different was your training compared to the traditional medical schools that Linda has referred to? And what are your insights on how holistic medicine was pushed aside? Have you had challenges with this today?
Definitely some challenges, definitely some challenges. But as
Yeah.
far as education, there are some similarities and also key differences, of course. A lot of the undergrad prerequisites are similar, the same. You do have a lot of the basic sciences that are really similar, the same. The differences really start with the clinical education. And so that's where we really kind of veer off into differences. That's where in regular medical schools, they are taught obviously a lot more about medications. They're taught more surgical responses and different things along those lines. And in naturopathic schools, we obviously focus a lot more on addressing the root cause. So that's one of our principles, is really looking at the root cause. And we do learn about pharmaceuticals, not obviously to the same length as a medical doctor does. But we learn about them more so in the context as well as for nutrient interactions and depletions. But with our background, it's a lot more, again, of really trying to work to, okay, why is this person experiencing what they're experiencing? And that's where our clinical education is based on. So really trying to solve the whys of why somebody is having what they're having, whether it be high blood pressure, high cholesterol, GI issues, whatever it may be, and really working to rebalance that. So it's really more of the philosophies that really differ. Of course, at the end of the day, you want to just say and believe that everybody wants everybody to be healthy. And it's kind of like, how do you get to that point? And what is health for each person? So as far as the education side, those are the biggest things that you're going to see as the differences. And the struggles, that's a really good question. So with the push out of natural therapies in the past, there have been obviously struggles, just like Linda was mentioning, but with chiropractors, acupuncturists, naturopathic doctors, really everyone in these different quote unquote alternative fields. And in Florida in particular, we see that really strongly. So Florida doesn't currently have a license in naturopathic medicine. It's very bizarre. There was one up until decades ago, and we don't really know what happened with that license as far as the why they took it away. But we are working as an organization to try to bring a license back, so that way people can actually have access to true naturopathic healthcare here. And so hopefully that will change. People can visit Florida Naturopathic Physicians Association.com for plenty more information about it, as well as legalizenaturopathy.com. There's also a great wealth of information on there about some of the history more pertaining to Florida, but also what people can do to take action and show legislators this is what they want, and that they're interested in it. They want this ability to have naturopathic doctors here to do what they're trained to do, because it is a 4-year doctorate program. It's not just taking some online courses. It is a real U.S. Department of Education accredited program. And we learn great things and we have great value to offer to people. Again, especially in Florida, I keep mentioning Florida, but that's where I am, right? We really do have a lack of doctors here, especially Southwest Florida. People are waiting months to get into the doctor and they're frustrated and they want different options. And so hopefully we can shift that a little bit to give people more of the availability of natural health care so people can really address what they're looking to address and how they want to address it too.
I'm one of those people that is seeking alternatives and natural approaches first. And if I have to use modern medicine, then I will. But what I thought was very interesting, what you were saying, is learning about the depletion is the word you use, but essentially the damage that pharmaceuticals can cause as you're helping your patients heal. So knowing enough about some of the pharmaceuticals and their effects.
Right. So, and that's the thing, just like you said, modern medicine obviously has its place. People need medications, they need their surgeries, they need to do what they need to do in order to, especially in that acute phase, survive, right? And then after that, though, a lot of the time people just aren't really educated or aware of what their medications might cause and what it might do to them. Again, I'm not saying all medications are bad and nobody should be on them, but it's more so the education of what happens when you're on this medication. What are some kind of common side effects that occur? What are some common things to expect? What can you do about them? And then just like you had mentioned, a lot of the times people will have some nutrient depletions that can occur with these medications. So it's really kind of filling those gaps for people as well. Because as many people know, oftentimes when somebody is put on one medication, it's kind of, the next steps are more medications that come after that. Sometimes because of some of the side effects of those other medications that they're put on, those original ones. But a lot of what I do is really trying to give people more of that education of, okay, so maybe you need to be on XYZ medication, but what can we look at because you're on those medications? Or what can we do differently to maybe have them work better or make it so you can get to a point where you can prove that maybe you don't need that medication any longer. It's not about just obviously people stopping their medications and, doing all that stuff on their own. But if you can bring down your cholesterol, it's a great example. If you can bring down your cholesterol and some of those inflammatory markers into normal levels, you can justify and say to your doctor, hey, look, my numbers look great. I don't want to really be on this medication anymore because I don't need it. So it's a lot more education about the pharmaceuticals and what they do, pros and cons, and what you can do to still live healthy lives and hopefully not need them. But if you do, what you can do to actually help with those side effects.
Yes, and you explain it so well, like in terms that I can understand why a toxic body has the symptoms it does,
Yeah.
where the fatigue is coming from, why I can't lose weight. Those things were explained in a clear manner where I can understand it. And you do that so well. It
Thank you.
is.
Education is so key because people, you're in a different situation because you're somebody who is interested in your health. You have more knowledge about health than a lot of the average people do, which is great, makes it easier. But at the same time, a lot of people come in and they don't have a lot of knowledge about their health, just like I don't have knowledge about cars or homes or landscape and whatever it might be. So it's communication, it's education, and letting people understand why this is happening to you and what you can do about it to change it. So you're a good example of somebody taking that and running with it and doing great.
Thank you. I am definitely committed to being the healthiest version of myself. That really is a great transition to this next segment, which is empowering people to advocate for their health. Today's healthcare landscape, it looks really different, but we are seeing some people more empowered to take control of their own health, like me, whether it's through better, access to information, educating themselves. We've got all this information at our fingertips. There's a growing awareness of alternative medicine and modalities, and people are realizing they have options despite the massive influence of pharma ads. I was looking at a statistics recently. About 80% of all the ads on television in the United States are for pharmaceutical drugs,
Wow.
contributing to this pill first mentality. 80%. These people know the power of the screen and how us consumers are being influenced by repetitive messaging over and over. And what gets me, as you mentioned, doctor, the side effects.
Mhm.
Are people not paying attention to the long list of side effects after every ad and beautiful commercial that they create? And they're still going in and asking for these drugs. So it just amazes me.
And I think
It's the way they do that though. They're at the beach, they're dancing, they're joyful, they're showing all this positive so the mind is seeing that and not really hearing it's taking it in. The subconscious is open and it's taking it in, but they're not registering with it. So it's really a programming.
I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, and I
So,
think it's too, people are just so desperate to feel better. They just are so sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, and they see one thing that speaks to them. So they're like, okay, this commercial or ad, whatever it is talking about all these symptoms that I'm experiencing. Maybe this will work for me. When a lot of time people aren't being heard, they're not being listened to when they go to their appointments. And some of it too is it's really the model that's set up, where people have these really short appointment times where they can't really, doctors, it's not fair for the doctors either, right? Like they don't have enough time with their patients to really even hear what's going on. So they hear these ads like, okay, maybe that's going to help me. It is kind of bizarre. Our whole system is bizarre.
Well,
So
and I'm seeing a shift, like what we're talking about here, because people are coming, they're sick and tired of being sick and feeling tired and not feeling good, and they're looking for solutions. So I'm sure you're seeing more and more people coming to you, doctor, as a naturopath to assist them. I certainly am in what I do. And it's refreshing because I can say 40 years ago, that wasn't the case. 40 years ago, when I was talking about health and prevention, people are looking at me like, what are you crazy? Just eat your food. But our food is so contaminated now that you don't get the nutrients. There's so many chemicals in the food and in the water. And I say nobody cares about your health more than you do.
very
And
true.
I'd love to see the shift. I'd love to see the people, wanting to learn, being open, and we're there lovingly to guide the way.
So, Linda, I mean, you mentioned the mental influence that commercials have. They want to have that lifestyle that they see in the commercials, and they're not paying attention to all the side effects, including death. That is a
That is
possibility.
the effect. That is not a side effect, by the way,
Yeah.
either. That's the effect.
Yes.
Over.
Yeah. So, how would you coach people to become more proactive in their own health journeys? What role does mindset actually play in advocating for your own health in today's system, counteracting the heavy, heavy, massive influence of these television commercials?
Great question. Great question. And it comes down to mindfulness, awareness, realizing, asking questions. That's a big thing. Why do I believe what I believe? Where does this come from? And doing a little bit of reading and digging into not just blindly trusting, but there's a frequency of truth, a resonance. And when you become still, and that's another thing, we're so conditioned to go, 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 do. And I'm guilty of it myself. I mean, I to sit and be still, to know that I am is a challenge for me. But that's when my whole being opens up and I realize the connection, and it's like a download. And you know what truth is. And so it starts there. I think it starts with a willingness. Sometimes it's people that are sick and tired, or they're desperate, they're at the end. Like I know stories of people that told their prognosis was not good. They did have a good outcome, maybe a year to live. And the medical field, and I'm not knocking doctors. They only know what they know, and all of us, we only know what we know. We don't know what we don't know. So that it starts again with that mindset of being open. Let's question, why do I believe what I believe? And let me look and see, where did this come from? Where did this belief come from? And then question everything. Being that support for people and being able to guide them to some tools, some information for them to review, but they have to be willing, they have to be looking. And I always pray that the willing and the people that I'm meant to serve find me, that we connect. It's so joyful for me to be able to help somebody, influence somebody to improve their health and their vitality. So
It is exciting to see people wake up to a new belief system
mm,
about their own health and find new discoveries. So kudos to you for doing what you do to help people. That's brings up the next topic as we look at natural alternatives versus pharmaceuticals. Let's see what kind of discoveries we can discover about some natural alternatives. We talked about the side effects of pharmaceuticals. We've seen how drugs like Ozempic, and it shocks me how many people I know who are taking this drug to lose weight, not because they're diabetic, which is the original purpose of this drug. Now they're starting to see some long-term side effects that are pretty severe. So anyway, that's just one example of the chronic diseases that are skyrocketing over the last 50 years, according to the CDC. You just almost have to correlate this with the rise in pharmaceuticals. I mean, 6 in 10 adults in the US have at least one chronic disease. 6 in 10. That's a sick society. And 4 in 10 have at least 2 or more chronic diseases. So, Dr. Spano, my question for you, I mean, what are the dangers of relying on pharmaceuticals for quick fixes? And what natural alternatives can people explore to treat root cause for their health problems? I know that's a big question, but
The dangers of just relying on pharmaceuticals, I think it again comes to the education and communication. So people oftentimes are using Ozempic as a perfect example. Oftentimes people will be put on a medication like that, which the medication definitely serves its purpose. It certainly does in scenarios, but people aren't given the education most of the time as far as what they need to eat. So making sure you're getting enough protein, you're getting enough exercise, you're not on too high of a dose, so that way you don't lose the weight too quickly, you're not losing your muscle mass. That medication is a perfect example of even just a very typical scenario outside of anything else like GI associated, which I do a lot of gut health things, so I see a lot of GI associated side effects that can pop up in that medication. But that's medication such a perfect example because a lot of the time it's just the education isn't there for people. And some places are doing it well, right? They are providing that education, and that's great. That's where you can really see those pharmaceuticals being used properly. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen all the time. So you get people who are put on these medications, are not given the full list of side effects that may happen, and what they need to do differently in order to be healthy. Right? Because what's the point a lot of the time if you're eating less, but you're still not eating well? You're still not getting your nutrition. Now your nutrients are probably really depleted because the quantity of what you're eating is so low because you can't eat as much because, say, for example, a medication like that. So you end up seeing people who they're losing weight, but they're not feeling well entirely because they're still not addressing the really root issues of what can pop up, right? So that's what I see as oftentimes, a big issue with it. Or IBS medications, right? So IBS medications, same thing. Some of them serve their purpose, definitely. But at the same time, if we're not addressing the why somebody is diagnosed with something like IBS, like irritable bowel syndrome, then you're just going to have them be on medications their whole lives. And if that's what they want, and some people want that, fine. I'm never going to judge anybody by any means for the choices they make. But a lot of people don't want that. They want to know, okay, why am I having irritable bowel syndrome? What are the things that might be contributing? Is it dysbiosis? Is it a gastric infection? Is it a prior infection? Is it they're eating the wrong foods? Is it stress? Stress, of course, is a huge one with irritable bowel syndrome. Is it truly irritable bowel or is it something else? I mean, look at endometriosis. That's one where I see a lot of women, they eventually end up being diagnosed with something like endometriosis. And endometriosis can take, on average, about 10 years for a woman to get diagnosed with. In the meantime, they have all these gut issues that are going on, and they're told it's just irritable bowel syndrome, when in reality, it's endometriosis that is causing those gut issues. So that's where when you just give a pill just to make things quote unquote better, it doesn't end up actually addressing the root of what's going on. And it's hard to get people to truly feel well when that is the mindset. And again, I'm not knocking doctors, it's just different trainings, and some people want that, right? But for people who don't want it and they do want to know what's going on and why, there are options out there for them. Often it's more time consuming, it's more effort on each person's part because you have to really work and be honest with yourself and say, okay, what am I doing that might be contributing to some of these symptoms? In America, especially, it's the go, go, go mentality. It's the high stress we have, and we kind of thrive on that we think we thrive on it. Let's put it that way, right? We're clearly not thriving. We think we are. It's the lack of sleep. It's this hustler mentality. People aren't well, and some of it is our own fault. I'm never going to be one to place blame on individuals like that. But at the same time, it's our society that has created this really unwell lifestyle, and it just compounds all the other issues that we have. And, we're not doing well. We need to figure out ways in which we can truly get better and stay better.
what I realized and what you help people understand is the body has the innate wisdom to heal itself. It's an
Absolutely.
incredible machine. Looking at an alternative for the damaging pharmaceuticals that are out there, Dr. Spano, let's have some fun for a minute. I'm going to just throw out some common ailments, and maybe you can prescribe some natural alternatives. So, if somebody wanted to have an alternative to Ozempic
Mhm.
and weight loss, what would you say?
So my answers to these are never fun because it's always, it depends. So whenever I work with people and we spend an hour together and we're going through saying, okay, what's going on? Why is it going on? That's the biggest thing. Why is it going on? And what can you do to realistically make this better and change? Some people can only do one thing differently. Some people want to do 10 things differently, right? So there are a lot of things that you could do to change your diet or lifestyle. But two, a lot of people who are end up overweight, they're doing it because maybe they have high stress and that's how they're coping, right? One of their coping mechanisms is actually by eating. That's really common for people. And so if you're not supporting that side of that, it's going to be really difficult for people to maintain healthy weight loss. And two, making sure people maintain healthy relationships with food. You never want people to fall into those pitfalls, especially as women. We start out already, we're kind of, it's like an uphill battle, with how women are kind of quote unquote like trained to eat and trained to exercise and all that. A lot of women don't have healthy relationships with food. So with me, it's always the why and a really individualized approach as far as how we can get people to achieve those things, ideally without needing those medications.
I have something to add to that. I definitely agree with Dr. Spano. It depends. Everything depends. Each individual is an individual, and we need to address that. But one thing that across the board, I think will serve everyone well, and it's free, and you have it with you all the time. You just have to have the mindfulness to utilize it, is your breath.
That's great. That's a great addition. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, because the stress that you just mentioned, when our stress is up here, this is stress. We're at stress. And it maintains that level. And people don't realize that they're stressed out because I'm stressed here. This is what stress is like. This is how I've got finances, I've got kids that I'm elderly, I'm dealing with. I'm not stressed. I'm stressed here, but I'm not stressed. They don't realize that this is a constant stress. And when they can lower that and through the breath, close your eyes, be mindful. Now you've tapped into the parasympathetic nervous system. You've turned off the cortisol levels that are flooding your body. You can't lose weight when your cortisol levels are on. And you come down to this state of being. I see it in my yoga class all the time.
Mhm.
It's like you can feel the energy shift in the room, and it's beautiful. And we have this tool, and I think we can all utilize it to help our foundational for our well-being. So
Yeah, you're so right. And I think a lot of the time we get kind of wrapped up in like the newest things out there, right? Like the newest biohacking or the newest supplements or the newest who knows what, right? But at the same time, when you go back to those core basics, that's where you really see such success and stress reduction or stress response. That's huge. So I mean, it's one of the most important things you can do, right? I mean, you see it all the time with your yoga classes. That's really cool to actually, you probably actually see, right? People's shoulders shift down, like people actually settle down and you're exactly right. People think that they're not stressed out, and you talk to them and you hear about all the things on their plates, and you just look at them like, no, you are stressed. You're used to this. You think you're used to this kind of level of stress, but your body's not. It's still not good for you. It's really tough. As society, it's really tough right now for a lot of people to acknowledge that they have that stress and realize they can do something about it, the stress response. And even something as simple as just adding in that breath work, like you mentioned, is fantastic.
and we can do it at any time. And an added tool that we have in our arsenals, and it's creating that environment because it's a lifestyle shift. And you said earlier that not everybody's ready to make that shift, and I see that all the time. They just like, just give me a pill and it'll fix it. Well, that's not going to fix it. That's going to create more problems. But we have to bless them with where they are. They're just not ready. They haven't raised to that conscious level yet to want to get to the root of what's happening.
Yeah,
You know.
stress is the root cause, I believe, to a lot of the chronic illness that's happening. And I know that in my case, I went through a few years of chronic stress that contributed to weight gain, everything that you ladies are talking about. So there was a study done that 55% of US citizens are living under extreme stress. That is like the most unhealthy, life-threatening level of stress. And most of them don't even realize it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's more than half of our circle
And
of
I'd venture to say it's even higher than that, actually.
Right,
yeah,
probably.
that was done actually post-pandemic. Before the pandemic, it was 45%. So it's gone up. But you're
But
right.
just like,
That was a
yeah, just like you guys are saying, I think most people just don't even realize their stress levels. They don't realize that even good stress is a stressor. They don't realize being in environments like moldy environments, right? That's a huge stressor. Whether people recognize and know they're in a moldy environment doesn't matter. Your body knows it and it's still being stressed. Or, any kind of toxic environment, emotionally toxic, whatever it is, right? It's all these stressors that just add up and up and up and up. And we just think, well, everybody has that stress. I'm just going to keep going on, carrying on with my day. But it's true. Most people do have these big stressors, but that doesn't mean you don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And do the free stuff, do the free stuff, do the breath work. It works so nicely to really make a huge difference.
until the
Go
body
take a
starts
walk in
breaking
nature.
down.
Get out, move
Yes,
your body.
yes,
Get
Yeah,
outside,
nature.
and see the sun. It's not bad to have sun on your skin. We need that. And all these sunscreens that are blocking the vitamin D production. I'm not saying burn your skin, please. That's not the message here. But there's a practice you can do, and many of these practices are free. First thing in the morning, it's first light, allowing it resets your circadian rhythm. So, and then grounding, taking your shoes off, and we're lucky we're in South Florida, so we can do that year round, but not everybody can. But so they have sheets and different things that you can do to help connect to the earth. And we've lost so much connection. We've lost so much of how the body beautifully is designed and works together synergistically, and we've dissected it so much, and it's really sad. So I'm glad to see, though, I'm seeing so many more people looking, searching, wanting to learn more and doing better and making these shifts. And you're right, doctor, some are doing one at a time, and that's beautiful.
yeah.
One small degree of change can make a huge difference in the trajectory of where we go, right?
Yeah, it's fun too, right? It's so fun to see when
Yeah.
people make that one change and they come back and like, well, I cut out soda or whatever it is, right? They're eating more
Yes.
vegetables, they're getting more movement. And then you see the little light in their eye, right? Like they have like they're hooked now. They want to go to the next thing and
Then they
really see
want
how much
more because
better they
they're
can feel.
feeling better.
It's so
Yes,
fun.
yes,
It's so fun to
yeah,
see when people don't believe you that they'll crave healthy foods. I love it when people come in and like, I'm actually craving all these healthy foods and I really like it. Like, isn't it
yeah.
great? You don't need all the alcohol. People are so surprised by what they can do when they put their mind to it. It's so fun to see.
It is fun to see. It's a transformation. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Great conversation. Dr. Spano, you do an excellent job helping your patients create awareness around what is going in the body and tracking it on an app and then reporting back to you, what I've been eating. So I get to monitor my own eating habits and self-discover what I've been doing. I think I'm eating a lot less than I am. I'm putting a lot more calories in my body than I have been, or not burning enough calories. So you do a great job helping create that awareness. And you do help, you just ask the right questions to get to the root cause.
Well,
But
thank you
just
for
in
saying
case,
that.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
welcome.
And I think I'd like to add something too, because you said this a little bit earlier, but the mindfulness of how do you feel after you eat something?
Yes.
Check in with your body. It's signaling to you, yes, that if you feel alive and energized, that's a good food for you. If you feel like, oh gosh, heavy and I need a nap, or I don't, my stomach's turning, that's a food. Even though it might be considered a whole healthy food, it might not be what your body needs at this time. So listen, your body's telling
Yeah, you're exactly right. Your body is telling you. It's
you.
definitely true.
Yeah, isn't there a withdrawal almost from somebody
Mm,
who's been eating junk food and those addictive
headaches.
chemicals to going into eating healthy? But once you get through that, and you do start eating healthy, I mean, to your point, Dr. Spano, I mean, then it just like, oh, I want to order vegetables. I don't want French
Yeah.
fries,
Yeah,
And
it's definitely hard initially, don't get me wrong, food, a lot, again, like I was saying before, a lot of people really eat food as part of coping mechanisms for stress, for depression, for anxiety, for numerous different things. So a lot of people are doing that thinking that they're doing themselves something good. Like it's their reward meal or their stress meal, their comfort food. But in reality, a lot of the time it does make them feel worse, but it's really hard to break those habits. Then once they do, they're on the other side of it. Oftentimes they just feel so much better and they don't even want to look back into eating the foods before. And they will, right? Because people aren't robots. We're not perfect little robots.
Mm.
But most of the time when they do eat those foods, they'll say, okay, I ate it. I enjoyed it at the moment. I didn't feel great after I ate it, and I don't need to eat it again for a while. So it still maintains that healthier relationship with food too, instead of the strict, I can never have this food again, which has its own issues with it.
Yeah, and if you
the
say that
train.
to yourself, never have it again, it's the 80-20 rule, I think, because
Yes,
it puts stress on your body and we're
exactly.
trying to get rid of the stress. So, food is something that we come around families, we congregate, we have parties, and there's always food present. So you don't want to be so rigid that you can enjoy yourself and the laughter and the relationships and hugging and smiling with people because we're connected beings, we're here to enjoy each other's company. So yeah, you have to be playful with it. You have to give yourself grace,
Yes, I say that. It's so funny. I say that all the time too. The 80-20, give yourself grace. You have your good days, your bad days, good weeks, bad weeks, whatever they may be. And you're right. Like if you're celebrating and things are going on, you're with family, you're with friends, there's such a cultural aspect of food. So you don't really want to create that unrealistic expectation. Plus, it's boring to just eat the same things all the time. What fun is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
You need
Yeah.
some of that differences. You need the different food to feel good. And once you're eating really well, most of the time, 80% of the time, it's okay to have the 20% quote unquote cheat times.
Excellent. So I'm just curious about the natural alternatives to some of the common ailments that we were talking about earlier as well. Because we'll just go, if we are inflamed, we'll pop a ibuprofen.
Yeah.
But what would you prescribe, Dr. Spano, for inflammation, for example?
So the first thing I do whenever someone's talking about inflammation is obviously diet, right? So what are you putting into your body? That's one of the most important things that you can ever look at. And then outside of that too is looking at other things that are likely contributing to, stress creates more inflammation. Chronic infections can create more inflammation, even like dental health, that can create more inflammation, that creates more pain too. Hormone shifts that can create more inflammation. We see it a lot with perimenopausal, postmenopausal women who will end up having a lot more aches and pains once those estrogen levels really go down. So a lot of it too is really trying to, again, figure out why are you having this increase in pain, and then working to decrease it from there. So food, again, of course, is always going to be number one. And then there are some supplements that can be used to help with inflammation too, but they really only work and they work the best when everything else is looked at, right? So if somebody's in a mold is such a good example. If there's somebody's in a moldy environment and they're still in that environment, a lot of the anti-inflammatory type of supplements are really going to be limited with how much they can help you. But once you're out of that environment, once you work on the effects of being in a moldy environment, then you can use some of those if you even still need them. That's usually what I see too, is a lot of people end up working on some of the underlying drivers of inflammation, and then they realize, okay, I actually don't need all these other supplements that I thought I did need because I actually feel a lot better.
How about
Because
sleep disorders?
Oh, sleep disorders, that's a good one. So with sleep disorders, it's funny, there's so much debate out there about what is the best thing to do for sleep, even with pharmaceuticals, right? Cannabis, there's so many things out there, but sleep disorders, same thing, looking at the why people are having their issues with sleep. So are they having difficulty with falling asleep, or are they having difficulty with staying asleep, or is it both? Are they waking up too early? Because each one of those might be a different approach to it. There are some herbs that can be helpful, but if somebody has been dealing with chronic sleep for kind of like their lifetime, it's going to be a totally different approach from somebody who has more difficulty with sleep short term because of stress, right? And in some of those cases, ashwagandha, theanine can be helpful, hops, passion flower, there's a lot of different herbal or nutrient blends that can really help with that more shorter term insomnia. Lifelong insomnia, it's usually you're looking at more some genetic factors. Some people genetically have much more difficulty with sleep. Also, some people have shorter requirements for sleep, so they think they're having insomnia, but they really might not be. And then sometimes it's, histamine clearance. I'm seeing that one a lot more often. Issues with histamine as being a culprit. And sometimes it's kind of the only symptoms that somebody's having is difficulty with sleep. So it goes to show too why, you can't just take like a magnesium or, theanine or whatever it is for every single person because their sleep needs and their sleep why or their insomnia why is different for all those people. That's such a good one because just like the stress, just like the diet, if in movement or lack thereof, if you're not sleeping well enough, you're not going to feel well. You need your sleep or else there's no way you can feel energetic if you're not addressing all of those things.
Yeah, and that's the difference between self-medicating, going to Google,
Yes.
I'm not sleeping, so what do I need? Magnesium, going to Costco, buying magnesium, and thinking it's working when it's not working.
Yes, that's a
And
great
then going,
example.
yeah, and then going to someone like you that really wants to get to the root cause. I love that. All right, so the final one I have,
Yeah,
immune system boosting.
the immune system, it's funny, that's such a hot one, just post-pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that you could do for the immune system. Again, none of it is really going to do much if you're not doing the core thing. So if you're not getting your sleep, good luck. You're definitely going to catch whatever cold, flu is going around. But if you're sleeping well, you're feeding your body with the right nutrients, obviously you're going to be much better off. Stress, cortisol, jumping cortisol definitely depletes the immune system a bit, makes you a lot more susceptible to getting infections, even the simple cold flus. But outside of the core basics, what you're doing that, I actually see a lot of really good success with probiotics and making sure gut health is nice and robust and healthy. It has the right flora there in order to help the immune system function as it should. There are certain probiotics that help for different situations that are really beneficial. So, for example, if somebody has chronic UTIs or they get chronic vaginal infections or chronic sinus infections, there are different probiotics that can be beneficial for each situation. And then to, again, keeping your nutrient status up really nicely. So making sure you are getting enough vitamin C. Your vitamin D levels look good. Even though we live in Florida, most people have mediocre, if even that, levels of vitamin D. So they're barely even registering on the 30 to 100 reference range. They're hovering around 20, 29, 30, maybe if that. And there's plenty of information out there showing that all of those specific nutrients really should be higher in order to have somebody have a really nice, robust immune response.
It's educating yourself, it's diet, it's taking the right supplements, not just any supplements. You've told us there's a difference, big difference, and lifestyle changes. That's what this show is all about. It's transforming your life into a greater version of yourself, mind, body, and soul. And so, Linda, you've had your own experiences with natural alternatives and finding therapies that have worked for you. Can you share with us, what you've come across that has worked and maybe some tools for holistic healing?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I think through the years, it's been many things, but cleaning up your gut, that was a big thing for me, getting my gut to heal because it was leaky gut syndrome. I had a lot of different issues there. And then more recently, diet. We've all talked about that. That is the go-to thing for us to look at. More recently, there's so many new discoveries, and when you give your body the right tools, the tools can help your body perform better. That's what I find. There's light therapy. There's all kinds of different modalities. Massage can help lymphatic flow, but I found this therapy. It's a light therapy that activates our body's healing cells that go dormant as we age. This has really been a game changer for me. And it's actually something that I love sharing with people and letting them know that there are tools out there that they can utilize to improve their health and well-being, which helps those responses. So there's another thing they talk about genes and epigenetics. Genes, oh, well, that's runs in my family. That never really resonated with me. I just didn't believe that. And now they've proven scientifically that it's not your genes, it's epigenetics, which is your environment. So your environment either turns a gene on or off, and then you get a response from that. So if you want to learn more about epigenetics, you can look into that. But so it's really our environment that is, and that empowers us, guys. That empowers us to be able to make those healthier choices, to be able to give our bodies the tools that it needs to be able to perform optimally. So, yeah, I mean, just think of a cabinet maker. If he's trying to finish, like my husband, that's what he does. He's trying to finish some nice, beautiful woodworking. He's not going to use a rough saw and get a finished product. He needs a lot of tools when you're in that business. He needs a lot of tools. There's a tool for every job. So our bodies are like that. Our bodies need these tools in order to help us perform.
Well, you're right. There are so many tools out there, and finding the right one for you is the secret to becoming a healthier version of yourself, for sure. Doing the research. So, as we move forward and look forward, I want to close up the show with the future of healthcare and maybe get some insights on where you think we're heading, because we are seeing a resurgence of or an increase in holistic approaches. In fact, according to the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians, naturopathic doctors' visits have increased by 40% over the last decade.
Yay.
Yes, I love that. So, more patients are seeking these natural treatments, which is wonderful for chronic diseases, autoimmune disorders, preventative care, and everything that we've been talking about. So, Dr. Spano, where do you see the future of healthcare? How can we integrate modern medicine with holistic practices to get the best of both worlds?
That's a great question. So I will say how I hope it will go, because who knows, right? You never know. But I really hope that people can embrace it all, so you need to go to your doctors for what they're specialized in, as far as, if you have an emergency, if you need surgery, by all means, go there, right? But if you're working more the preventative side, you can look at something more like naturopathic medicine or some of the other modalities that are similar, and look for hopefully the more preventative side of things and what you can do to get healthy and stay healthy. That's really where we shine. We really don't want to wait for people to get diabetes. I think that's a perfect example. Even I see so many people who they're right on the borderline as far as their doctors putting them on medications. They're technically pre-diabetic, or they're even at the beginning of diabetes, and they say to their doctor, okay, just give me a few months, let me see if I can change things. And then their doctor will, I mean, it's everybody's choice, right, with what they decide to do or not. And most of the time the doctor says, okay, we'll do the labs in a few months, let's see what that looks like. I see them. And then through what they do through diet, lifestyle, nutrition, all that, their numbers come down really nicely. They might not be perfect, but they're on their way down. And usually at that point, their doctor's like, wow, this is great. Keep doing what you're doing. And they continue to monitor too, to make sure their numbers stay down and continue to go into the normal levels. And it's that kind of married approach that I think works the best. I really like an integrative approach. You're always going to have your medications that people need in different scenarios. And there needs to be an open line of communication. There needs to be people need to be listened to, right? People need to advocate for themselves. They need to say, hey, I'm not feeling well. I don't want to just go on this medication. I want to try to figure out what's going on. And instead of being kicked out of a practice or told that's stupid or silly, say, okay, well, maybe you can go towards these people who can hopefully help you get to that point. And then you still have those relationships with all of your doctors. That's where I think it should go, having more of that open communication, that more integrative approach, and people will be more successful with their health that way.
Yes, and that's how I found you. I asked my primary care physician for a more naturopathic doctor because that's what I prefer at this point.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
hopefully, speaking of future, right? Hopefully in Florida, we'll have that shift where we can get a license here. Because right now, even though I have the doctorate in naturopathic medicine, I have to work under a nutrition license. So I'm limited with what I can do, which is super frustrating. I mean, I can still do a decent amount because so much of what I do is nutrition and lifestyle. But at the same time, it is limiting. And it would be nice to be able to have those other modalities available here for Floridians, and I myself would want that. I benefited from naturopathic medicine. It's why I'm not on any medications and haven't been for like 20 years for Crohn's disease. and I don't even take any supplements for it and haven't for years. It's because of naturopathic medicine, and I think other people deserve that opportunity too. So hopefully things will change in the near future. We can get a license here so people can have more availability of all these different natural therapies that really can work quite well.
Yes. Well, it does appear as though the shift from holistic medicine to pharmaceuticals and back is not just a cyclical trend. I mean, it does reflect a deeper desire for true wellness that we're all
Yeah.
taking into our own hands. And the more we create awareness, like shows like this, and with your patients. So, and it's also movements like MAHA, which I'm really excited to see, creating awareness through social media. Even though, I don't want to make it political, make America healthy again. It's just creating the awareness of our food and what RFK Jr. is doing to advocate for holistic health. I'm very optimistic. Let me say that.
too.
So
And,
while
and
pharmaceuticals do have their place, naturopathic medicine, natural remedies, functional medicine shows that people are looking for more than just a quick fix. The rise in chronic diseases and prescription drugs is pushing people to seek preventative care, natural healing, and solutions that empower them to take control of their health. So as we close up today's show, ladies, because this conversation has been extremely empowering, what are some call to actions that both of you have? Just a quick summary, maybe a takeaway that you'd like our audience to leave with, and a final bit of wisdom that you can share. Linda, we'll start with you.
my takeaways, I just want to say this too. I see the shift of people being more empowered. Nobody cares more about your health than you do. And when we take back the power in our own healing, we have control again. Modern medicine is great with acute care, but not so much with chronic illnesses. So some of the things that people can do are fasting. Know your numbers. Don't just blindly follow a recommendation from a doctor because they're making it. Ask what is the cholesterol number that they have you on the statin for. I ask people all the time and they have no clue. They don't know what their numbers are. Know your numbers because there's a lot of information that you can learn from that. And seek out people like Dr. Spano, myself here, that we can guide you and lead you in some alternative solutions. They're out there. There's a lot of them. There's ways to help you safely release the weight. We've shared some of them here today. And then there's new tools using phototherapy, photobiomodulation that helps turn your copper peptide responses back on, which is supporting your healing cells. So your body knows an imbalance. It doesn't need to wait for a diagnosis. You can actually prevent that because your body already knows there's an imbalance and give it the tools it needs to start that healing process. So eat well, drink your water, pure water. That's another thing RFK is taking out in Lee County here, praise God, the fluoride in the water. So that is on the docket to be eliminated. These are things that we need to educate ourselves and start getting involved in your local communities to say, like, we want our healthy food. We want a clean environment to live in. We want that not just for ourselves, but for our generations to come. What kind of legacy are we leaving for our children and our grandchildren and on?
Beautiful way to wrap it up. And Linda, how can people learn more about you and your mission? Do you have a website or somewhere?
I do. It's actually on there with my name, lindacsaszar.now.site. You can connect with me there. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I'm starting to get a little bit more on Instagram, but love to connect with you, whether it's close here in Southwest Florida or afar. I have people I'm helping in Australia, all around the globe. So you don't have to limit yourself to just this local geographic area.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I so
Thank you for
appreciate
having me. This has
being
been
on
an
the show.
amazing hour.
Good. Yes, I have to agree. Thank you so much, Linda. And Dr. Spano, I'd love to hear some closing thoughts from you, some takeaways you'd like to leave with our audience, and maybe a call to action as well.
I don't want to repeat everything we already said as far as, making sure you're eating well, you're drinking your water, you're getting your movement, stress reduction, sleep. We don't have to harp on those still. But the one thing I do want to make sure people really just know they have the ability to do this is be your own advocate. So I always tell people, I'm talking with you, especially the initial visit, I'm talking with you for 1 hour. You live with yourself 24 hours a day. You've been dealing usually with these things for decades, if not longer, right? Some of these conditions, some of these complaints. You know your body best. You know your mind best. So pay attention to your body, really track what you have going on, and talk to somebody who can really put forth the time needed to dive in deeper. I've been the person on the other side of things where I've been ignored for over a decade, laughed in my face. People said, you have red hair, that's why you're having some of the issues you're having. It's bizarre. I've been there, I've done that. Even with my background, even knowing better, I've been there, done that. So don't let that happen to you. You don't have to let it happen to you. There are people out there who can help you, who can give you options, who can hear what you're saying and really help you figure out what's going on and why, and get you to really feel better. That's my biggest request for people. You don't have to not feel well. You can feel well. You can feel great. You can feel happy about your life. You can wake up not being in pain all the time. There are options out there, and just making sure you really work for yourself and you're an advocate for yourself. You have to be.
Well said. Perfect. And how can people learn more about you? And do you work with people outside of Florida?
So it's tricky. So I work mostly with people in Florida,
Okay.
because I do work under the nutrition license, but I am working on some courses and some other things that can be accessed from people outside of Florida. So that is in due time, that'll be there. But people can look at my website at spanohealthandwellness.com, all spelled out. And then I'm on Instagram. I think most people aren't as active as they should be, probably for the algorithm, so to speak, but I am there. Dr. Theresa Spano, so Drteresa Spano. You can find me there as well with some day-to-day information and just some additional health stuff on there too.
Perfect. Dr. Spano, it's been an honor to have you on my show. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and for helping me get to feeling like a human being again.
Thank you for having me. This is a great show. I think it's great what you're doing, just really educating people and giving people some other options they have and bringing conversations around it, right? Because I think that's one of the most important things. So thank you for having me, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Enjoy your day. You guys are
You
Thanks.
rock
too.
stars.
You
Appreciate you.
too.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Sorry.
So, as we wrap up today's powerful episode, we've journeyed through the fascinating history of healthcare, from the early days of holistic medicine to the pharmaceutical-driven era shaped by powerful forces like the Rockefellers, and now a return to natural, empowering alternatives. We've explored how medicine has an incredible value, but it's also become clear that we have permission to advocate for ourselves, take control of our own health, and seek out natural remedies that truly support our bodies from the inside out. We can heal. And there are people out there like Linda and Dr. Spano to help us get through it. So here is your call to action in a nutshell. Take charge of your health. Do your research, stay curious, don't ever stop learning, and don't be afraid to question the conventional when it comes to your own wellness. Use the knowledge that you've gained today to build a lifestyle that serves you. Take change into your own hands. Build a lifestyle that serves you, one that prioritizes balance, prevention, and healing from within. The journey to transformation starts with a single step, and that step is taking ownership of your health. Because when our health fails, our life fails. We have to take care of our health. As always, let's close the show with a powerful affirmation to lock in the message of what we've learned today. So repeat these words after me. I am empowered to make informed decisions about my health, blending the best of modern medicine with the natural wisdom of holistic healing. My body is capable and wise, and I trust in its ability to heal and thrive. Thank you for joining us today on the Transform with Angel show. A huge thank you to Dr. Theresa Spano and Linda Csaszar for sharing their incredible insights. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and remember, you have the power to transform your life. Let's step into our best selves together. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. If any of this show resonated with you and you picked up just one golden nugget, go ahead and hit that like button and share it with somebody. Leave a comment. Let us know what you're thinking and what you thought about what we shared today. And be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And while you are doing all your happy clicking, go to transformwithangel.com, where I have a free gift waiting for you. It's a copy of my latest book, How to Conquer Anything. It's a guide to get you through these transformative times. And while you're there, visit the shop, where I have a few of my favorite health products that have helped me heal. You can learn a little bit more about the supplements that I take that got my body and my brain back to health. All right, I appreciate you. Thank you again.